Hello everyone, it is the moment you have all been waiting for. We did LCK, we did LPL, we did LEC or EU, and now we're finally going to talk about the greatest region of all time. It's time to preview the LCS. And what better people to do it with than Emily Rand from ESPN. Hello, Emily.
Hello, how's it going?
And the Jason Tran, Wildturtle from FlyQuest. Hello.
What's up?
We see you're in, so this is the team room, this is the practice room in the FlyQuest house right now?
Yep.
You got your coach behind you. We saw JJ sticking his head in earlier before. Are you pumped for LCS to start?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I actually haven't played in like 3 or 4 months, like in LCS, so definitely, like, it's been a pretty long time. I haven't played like any other tournaments in between, so I think the downtime was pretty long this year, at least for me.
Yeah, you scared me for a second when you're like, I haven't played in like 4 months. I'm like, oh gosh.
No, I mean like LCS.
yeah, of course.
I played.
Course. So what was it like for you watching as just an NA fan, like watching Worlds and watching Cloud9 go through and Liquid just get...
He was media. He was not a fan.
Oh yeah, you were. Yeah.
He was doing more work than like most of us.
Of NA?
I mean, obviously...
I was dunking on us, but...
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's like a pretty crazy year for NA in general this year. I don't think a lot of teams or a lot of people thought like NA would get that far this year, and then C9 kind of was struggling in I think the play-ins, and then we're like, oh no, we have TL as our last team, and then TL didn't do that hot, but C9 came back and clutched it. So I think it was a pretty crazy year for Western League of Legends in general, and having like Fnatic in the finals was like something not a lot of people were expecting as well. So overall, it's been crazy. 2018.
How did you like it in the press room? Because you were the one going around. I thought you were trying to take my job for a second. I'm like, oh gosh, I have to take this guy out before people realize how talented he is with a microphone. But I mean, you were interviewing everyone. How was that?
It was pretty fun for the most part. I mean, I think it was kind of easy for me because I've been interviewed like for the last 6-7 years. So it was kind of easy to just like kind of go in there and ask players questions that I would like to be asked and just like be more relatable, I guess. I kind of had both sides to go off of when I was doing it, so I think it was pretty fun for the most part.
What's the one question that you want to get asked in an interview so I can ask you after your victory this weekend?
Let me think about that one a bit. I don't know, just ask me whatever your heart tells you to. I don't know, you come up with the questions. You're the interviewee.
You just told me that you had the experience, like, yeah, I know the questions that I would want to be asked.
I can't cheat.
I
just can't cheat. Yeah,
all right, okay.
That's cheating. I'd say that's cheating.
All right, no cheating. I'm not going to copy off of your questions or anything, but same thing that we do with this show. We're going to talk about all of the teams. We have everyone basically returning, although a lot of roster shakeups. Some were just crazy. And then we're going to go ahead and grab your predictions at the end. So I think it's fitting that the first team that we talk about is FlyQuest. You guys basically kept... the entire, the same roster, except for you now have Viper up top and Pobelter in mid?
Yeah. Those are pretty much our 2 changes. Yeah, a lot of people are like kind of counting us out because we didn't even use our import slots. And I personally like my team a lot. The environment's good. We have like 5 North American resident players. Obviously, Lucas from Denmark, but... I overall really like my team. I don't mind that Viper's a rookie or we have like JJ in the support in the bot lane. Like I overall think we're a really good team. So,
how's Pobelter fitting into the team right now?
Pobelter's fitting in pretty well in our team right now. I think he likes the environment here. I don't know. He just kind of came here and he just fit in really well. I think so. It's like I played with him before, so I don't think it's like a new experience for me to play with Pobelter, I guess.
So, okay, so I just realized that usually when we do these shows, Emily just immediately goes in and is either like, FlyQuest is going to do great this split. They just look at the roster that they have right now, where she usually goes like, all right, well, they lost this player, so this is a bottom tier team. So, Emily, I'll go ahead and...
oh, wow.
I'm just kidding. That was an example. I'll take control of this because I know you're going to want to talk about our next team. But, I mean, so yeah, you guys don't really have like any of the crazy Korean imports that a lot of other teams are doing to kind of shake up the team. So, but you did have a coaching change. So with this new roster, with the new coaching change, how is this FlyQuest going to be different from last splits?
how this FlyQuest is going to be different from last split. Well, I think last split we have like a pretty good run anyway. I think we were one game from, having second seed going into playoffs. Like, I think a lot of people disregarded that, but we were literally just one game from being like the second seed going into playoffs. So I think the biggest change for us this split is obviously the coaching staff change. But I think this split, or the differences between last year and this year, for me, I think personally, it was like, I don't think we worked that well as a team last year in macro and just playing well as a team. That was probably our weakest point. And I think this year we're going to try to change that by working on being a good team throughout the whole year. And I want to be working on being a good teammate. That's pretty much my goal.
Emily, do you have anything that you want to throw in and ask him about his team?
I mean, I think it's an interesting... So I like this team, I think, better than people will assume that I do. But because I feel like people are just like, you gave me that intro and now people are expecting to rip into this team, which I'm actually not going to. I really like that you kept Santorin because I have a lot of respect for him and I think he's actually quite good. And I think he had a good year last year too.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So. I mean, without Santorin, I don't think we would have been able to get even close to second. So it was a pretty good year overall, even though we didn't take it all away. But I think overall, for the expectations and where we were as a team, I think it was a pretty good run.
Yeah, think of it as your ramp-up year. It's like last year was just ramping up. This year, now you're gonna just dominate. But with that, there's still some really strong competition in some of these teams that we're gonna cover. So who do you think is the biggest threat right now in the LCS?
In the LCS, I don't know. Personally, I think TSM is actually pretty strong. They got probably I think Sven's like probably the best, or like one of the best AD carries, like just in general. And I think just having Smoothie alongside with him. Obviously, they have Grigne and Acadian kind of sharing time right now because of some internal issues. But I think TSM is a really good team right now. I'm not gonna say based off anything, but I just think they're good.
Yeah. All right, Emily, you have anything you want to close on FlyQuest before we move on?
No, I mean, I think the thing that stands out to me about this roster, other than the fact that it's, I think, the first predominantly Canadian roster we've ever had. Yes. It's the first time that's happened, like NA lineup, you think American players, but this is actually, or players from the United States, this is actually a predominantly Canadian lineup. I think it's also interesting that you have a lot of talent who are at different spots. Like you have, three veterans who I would consider JJ, who's entering his second year, and then Viper. And I mean, he's been around, but I would consider this to be his rookie split. So it's an interesting mixture of not necessarily raw ages, but just experience. So hopefully that works out for you guys too, because it can either, I've seen it work really, really well, or I've seen it also have like communication problems when there's like that much of an experience difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are like counting us out, but I think every team kind of starts at the same point. Like regardless of the talent, like you still have to practice going through their fundamentals and performing as a team. And I think whichever team can figure that out first normally plays the best anyway. And that's just based off my experience. So
yeah, I wouldn't really, I guess, necessarily count you guys out right now. I think there are a couple other questionable rosters out there. But I mean, speaking of, let's talk about one. Next team on our list. Let's talk about. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot that I left my alerts on, and my alert just popped up, and it was from. I was playing Silent Hill the other day, so it was just a scream to try to scare, so I just got blasted in my ear with like a Higurashi scream. But anyways, let's talk about Echo Fox.
Echo Fox.
Or rather, it just looks like Clutch recycled. They're basically keeping 3/5 of the team, Solo, Apollo, and Hakuho, and they added in Rush, and Phoenix is making a return. Emily, did you have first impressions of these roster moves?
I don't know how this team is going to come together. I do like the bot lane still, like despite the fact that Clutch kind of had a down summer, I would say. I still like this bot lane a lot, and they're obviously very familiar with each other, which is usually a good thing. So, and I think they want to continue to play together, right? So I like them a lot. Phoenix coming back is interesting. Obviously, he's like known for being a really, in my opinion, he's a very strong laner, and that's his biggest strength, which will help out Rush, who we didn't see much from him in Korea because it was primarily score starting. He has a more aggressive jungle style for sure. I mean, at this point, most junglers, I would say, have more aggressive jungle style than Square
Jungle
does.
is just a no P role, I'd say.
For sure. So a lot of this is going to be how well Rush fits on the team. So he's kind of I wouldn't say wild card, but like when I look at this, I'm looking at how well that jungle mid is going to work out to stabilize the team.
What do you think? What do you think, Jason?
Me?
Yeah, what do you think about this team when you look at it? Do you see a competitor, or?
I just think they're going to be like pretty similar to the Clutch last year. I don't really see like that many differences, I'd say, and I just think they're going to pretty much look similar to the Clutch last year. That's pretty much my only thing to say.
So they're shining light.
Regardless of picking up like new players, I think you're going to have like pretty much the core members from Clutch, and I do think either they like find a revelation or change something, or they're gonna play the same as they did last year.
Well, you worked with Song for a year, correct? Was that on Immortals?
No, I did not work with Song.
No,
before.
you did not. Who worked with Song?
It was Pope. It was IMT 2017, I think.
Oh, okay, so that was 2017. Because Song is now their head coach, and I mean, we heard great things about Song before. But last year with TSM, it wasn't too great. But he did come back and help Cloud9 with Worlds for a little bit. So is he going to be able to turn this like remixed Clutch roster into something greater with these new players? Or what do you think?
I do think Song is a pretty good coach. Like I've talked to him and got to like dissect on like what makes a good coach from him. And if he's able to, I guess, carry the team through like drafting and just getting the team to play really well as a team, I think they could potentially get really like make playoffs and perform really well. But I think at the end of the day, it's still really up to the players. Like coaching staff can always help so much, but I think it's always up to the players.
Great. You say that as your coach is right behind you, saying like, "Go home, you're useless." Hopefully he can hear us. But all right, Emily, any closing thoughts on Echo Fox before we go to our next team?
I mean, yeah, that's I was gonna say jungle mid, and it was mixing into one word like mungle. I think for me it really is about how those two come together. Just because, again, I feel like a broken record at this point, but stabilizing the map from mid lane is really important to anything you want to do, whether it is in the jungle or in your side lanes. So. That is what I'm looking at from this team. And if Phoenix can have the same kind of lane dominion that he's had previously, because you get him on some champions and you cannot push him out of lane. Yeah. That will be really good for Rush.
All right, well then let's look at the leftovers of Clutch Gaming. Or I wouldn't really call them the leftovers. They picked up Huni. They're keeping Lyra. Demonte from Echo Fox. It's like they did like a weird little swap with Huni and Demonte. Yeah. And then they're moving Piglet and Vulcan up to their starting roster. So, I mean, for me, the question that's first on my mind, and Turtle, I'll ask you this first, is Piglet still good? Because we saw him play a couple games last year, and he was okay, but I mean, they only ended up using him for one game, and then we never saw him again.
I think Piglet can always be considered like a dark horse player. You really don't know how he's going to perform. He could be. I would kind of classify him more like an emotional player, maybe. Like when he's on point, he's like a very great player. But like a Piglet on point to like Piglet on that TL that once I don't even know what year it was, but he didn't really have like the best year. So I would say it just kind of comes down to that. Like Piglet can be a good player still, I believe. Like. He has shown like moments of brilliance, but this I think this meta also doesn't really super favor like mechanical players more than just like being smart and being able to play with your team.
How would you describe the meta as it is right now? Because I'm not having very much fun in solo queue.
I actually really like how the game state is right now. It seems pretty balanced. It's just a fun game overall. It kind of feels like back in like season 2, season 3. You can play whatever champions you kind of want as long as you can play it pretty well.
Cool. Emily, thoughts?
So I didn't watch too much of him in Academy, and I'm going back and looking to see if he played any sort of mages spot. And he did. He actually did pretty well. Or he had like a 50-50 record on Rise. I was curious about that because I honestly didn't really watch him all that much. Again, I've heard, like, the things that I've heard are really similar to what Turtle said, actually, that he's still really skilled mechanically. So if he comes out and performs really well with Vulcan, that'll be a really strong point on the map for them. I do think that with this team, despite the fact that Huni had a lot of situations where he was getting caught out in lane, he was being really far ahead, and now that you cannot cancel teleport, we're going to see how well the TPs work as well. I think for this team, you're going to be looking at top side more than bot side still, even with Piglet kind of returning.
I think on any team with Huni, it's going to be like that. Huni's probably like the best player at playing with like the jungle and top lane. Like, I haven't seen a player that can use a jungle like so well in the top lane.
Okay, but in saying that, Huni was having like a slight decline in his performance towards the end of the split. So is he coming back? Like, is this his revival? Was it just like the circumstances of his team and his situation, or what's happening with him right now?
Well, I would say, like, to attribute to that, he actually got food poisoning in like the last.
I remember that.
Like,
that was
yeah.
bad.
So he actually didn't even scrim with the team. And they didn't scrim for like a week and a half or something, and then he just decided to play on stage, even though he was still like feeling sick. So it kind of sucks that that happened, but I do think he is still a good player. Like, we played him, like we played all these teams in scrims pretty much, and he's still a good player.
Awesome, fingers crossed for him because I really want to see him kind of do well. Anyone closing thoughts before we move on to the next team on Clutch?
I mean, I still think you're looking at topside for sure when you look at this team.
Got it. I think, so before we go, I think for me, my question mark was still around Lyra because he wasn't the best in jungle last year for Clutch, and yet he was the only one to stick around on this team. So clearly the team wants him because there were other jungle pickups that they could have picked up from Academy. Is there something hidden about Lyra that I don't know about, or was he just having a bad year and they're choosing to invest in him again?
I mean, Lyra when he first came to NA, he was amazing. I think he was like probably in contention for like best jungler, and I think that's kind of what Clutch saw, and they're like, yeah, let's just bring him back. Hopefully he can play as he did before. So that's probably their reasoning behind it.
Got it. Fingers crossed for him. All right, next team that we're looking at. This was, I think this was one of the first big roster moves that kind of shook me a little bit, was when Optic Gaming picked up Crown from Gen G, and it was just like, wait a second.
Yeah, that was an odd one, I'd say.
Yeah. Emily, what did you think of when you first heard about this?
So I have a lot of Crown opinions. I actually really like Crown. Anyone who has kind of heard me talk about him before probably knows that, but the thing I really respect about Crown is that he's not only really forthcoming in interviews, but he's just a really introspective person, and he went through this whole thing where he worked really, really hard to try to win a world championship, and then when he did, his response was kind of like, I feel like I didn't contribute because I didn't play well. And it's if you go back and read interviews with him, they're kind of like, again, not depressing, but like really introspective. And I really respect that about him, and I respect how much hard work he's put into not only this game but previously when he wanted to become a StarCraft pro. That being said, the performance he had at the World Championship, like, if he can come back from that is insane, because it was really, like, it was one of those kind of performances that was honestly like hard to watch. It was like that entire Gen G team just really fell apart. So I'm not sure how well he'll play. Obviously, it's a different region. It's not the first time he's been out of Korea, but the other time he was actually in Brazil. And I know he became really homesick, among other things. So I hope he does well because I like him. I am kind of shaky on how well he'll be able to play.
Yeah, I think Optic, I think, can be considered pretty close to our team, I'd say, like, just because they only have, like, yeah, I would just say Optic's kind of like a similar to our team. Obviously, I don't know how to put this, but we're just similar. Like, I just feel like we're really similar. If, like, we're in similar positions. They have, like, pretty much a rookie top. Not really a rookie, but Viper and Dokla in the top. And then they have Big in the support. He's been playing for a while as well. And then we have JJ to kind of match that.
Yeah.
And then we have Meteos and Centaur, which have been playing forever. So I just think Optic's pretty similar to FlyQuest, so we'll see how that pans out.
Well, what do you think about Meteos hopping onto Optic? Because I think that was, like, again, a question mark. He came from... The last team he was on was FlyQuest Academy, right? After being moved from 100 Thieves under, you know, all these shady question marks, like no one knows why. And then he's hopping around everywhere. And now all of a sudden he's on Optic. So, I mean, you played with him before. What do you think about his move on to this team?
Well, I always think, like, Meteos is, like, a great player. He has, like, a really good mindset about the game and what he wants to do. And I think that can conflict with, like, a lot of other players. So I think that could probably be why he's been moving around and just haven't found his home yet. But he does have, like, a pretty opinionated way of how he likes to play. And I respect him for that. And I think he's still, like, a really good player even to this day.
How do you think that's going to fit on, in with Optic? I know that Big was being credited a lot with shot calling, and I think I spoke with Zabutini. He said he really liked the way that Meteos thinks about the game, and that he's excited to have him on. And just playing with Arrow. Okay, I just want to talk about the Arrow and Big bot lane because that's something I'm excited for. I wasn't sure if Arrow was going to stick around for this split, but I'm excited to see what him and Lil Boy Terry have in the bot lane. Turtle, what do you think about Arrow in the bot?
What do I think about? It's really hard to say right now, but just from last play, I feel like he played pretty normal. He wasn't really outstanding, I'd say. And he becomes, like, a really good player sometimes. Like, I think when his Ezreal first came to NA LCS, it was, like, insane. He was, like, carrying every single game. I think he won MVP of that split, or I don't even remember. I think he won MVP of that split, yeah, just because of his Ezreal performance. So I think for Arrow, I think he just has to find, like, his comfort spot to, like, perform really well, and I don't know how he'll find that, especially considering English is not his first language. So I think it's really up to him at that point.
Got it. Emily, anything else that you want to close on Optic?
I still think Meteos is a really good player. So when I look at this team, I'm looking at what he can start from the jungle, and if he can kind of help get them ahead. Because if Crown performs similarly to how he did on Genji, it will be something like how Ambition would kind of come in and help him hold lane at times. So I'm curious to see how Meteos kind of tackles being on this team, but I actually have a lot of respect for Meteos. I think he is an incredibly smart player. So I'm excited to see him back.
Cool. Let's move on to the next team. Counter Logic Gaming, CLG. First question that I have after seeing the Academy games from last week, we saw that Darshan was actually starting for Academy in the top lane. I know that CLG is a team that's kind of been preaching that they're trying to do this 10-man roster with Wiggly moving up from Academy to starting for this year. But are we going to potentially see Darshan and Fallen Bandit switching in and out in the top lane? What do you guys think?
I have no idea about this current CLG. It's really hard to, like, even rank them, I'd say.
Yeah.
At least for me, personally.
Yeah, I mean...
That's kind of what I really...
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I feel about it.
That's, when I've talked to a lot of people, that's kind of the reaction I get, where it's like, ooh, CLG, I mean, they could be good. I think they picked up Power of Evil to fill in for the mid lane, so I really like that pick because PoE seemed to be popping off regardless of how his own team was performing. He was still kind of like the shining light on Optic when he was playing. But again, it's kind of like, question mark. How are they going to do?
Yeah, I think for me, just CLG is just a huge question mark. Like, I don't really... Like, they have a good bot lane. Their mid laner is good. But I think their top side is just a huge question mark for me. That I just don't know, you know?
Yeah. Emily, what do you think?
I like the Power of Evil pickup, obviously. It's a really different style from what sorry, that was my neighbor's dog. It's a really different style from what Huhi brought. So I think that in and of itself, like, we're obviously going to see a really different CLG because Huhi had a really, I'm not going to say like particular style, but I actually really liked Huhi's style. I thought he was really knowledgeable about not only how to affect his side lanes from the mid lane, but also how to push sometimes in a 4-1. I thought he was really smart about that stuff. So I think PoE is more of a classic, like, you're looking at lane dominance, you're looking at a lot more like standard mage play. He will be able to, again, like, he's the same kind of mid laner who will just hold mid and it'll be really hard to push him out, right? So that'll actually be great for Wiggly because it will give him a lot more room, especially as, like, I know he played a game or two last year, but, this would be, like, I never know how NA LCS counts their rookie seasons because sometimes there's a little bit of, like, a stretch in there, but I still consider Wiggly a rookie, so, and I want him to do well because he was on Team Ocean, so my first scouting ground team I ever covered. But, like, I think having PoE in the mid lane should really help him as well, just because it'll give a lot of stability. So he can have a little bit more room to, like, make mistakes.
Yeah.
Which is something that any jungler coming in is going to make. So I like that a lot. Like Turtle, it's the top side that I'm worried about on this team more than I am worried about the bot side. Obviously, we know 6A and Biofrost are a good lane. Having PoE there should also perhaps stabilize the map in a bit more of a traditional way. So it might take some pressure off of them as well, which could help. But yeah, this team is still, there are a lot of, like, question mark rosters. Like, we went over Echo Fox.
Yeah.
We went over Optic. This is another team where I'm just kind of like, I'm not really sure where to place them. Not really sure how they're going to come together. But it'll be interesting. And yeah, like, I think PoE is the big thing when I'm looking at this lineup. I want to see what he does with a different, like, more standard mid lane style.
Yeah, I think after Worlds this year, like, you can't really count out, like, a ton of rosters now. Like, there's gonna be so many potential good teams that you don't even know of just because of how the game is right now. And I really kind of liked what Riot did with the game. They pretty much made it in a way where, like, any team can potentially be good as long as they know the meta, know these certain champions, and play pretty well around, like, the macro stage of the game, which I think is very healthy for the game. I think we're going to have a really crazy year this year just because of the state of the game.
I'm glad to hear, I guess, a pro saying that they enjoy the state of the game, because usually when you look at Twitter, it's always like, oh, well, what are you doing with this? Why can't you balance this? But I think you're right. I've only seen fairly good things on social media and on Reddit, just kind of saying, like, this feels okay right now. Let's just try to keep this and not throw too much of it out the window. But okay, so for a team of question marks, I think one of the biggest question marks for me is their choice for a new head coach. They're bringing Weldon back in after his multiple stints as, I've always understood that he took more of a mental coach perspective with TSM. I feel like he was with one other team, but I can't remember. But Turtle, were you with Weldon when he was it G2?
For a bit.
Yeah, he went to EU, right?
I never worked with Weldon, like, directly. I've done some of his workshops before, though. And I do think that he does have, like, supporting staff. Like, he could just have the title of the head coach, but have, like, a lot of people under him that can help him with drafting and game knowledge in that sense, because he could be lacking in that area, but he has been around the top teams for a while, so maybe he has his own, like, style he wants to teach.
Got it. How would you really define, like, the position of head coach then? Since now we have so many, we have positional coaches popping up, we have analysts, we have people who are specifically doing drafts. So what's the head coach's role in your opinion?
It kind of goes back to like what I said earlier. It's, like, mostly up to the players. Like, the head coach can be, like, a facilitator and just making sure you don't lose, like, sight of your goal and, just put you on track, I think, is a great way to put. Like, I think a good coach is someone to be able to put you on track, is able to know the meta quickly, know how to draft well, be able to present new picks. I think that's like an ideal coach. And maybe have like a vision of the game that they think the game should be played and be able to portray it on the players like Reaper does. I think that's a really good style as well. But at the end of the day, I do think it's still up to the players, and coaching staff are just people that help you get to your goal.
Nice. Emily, any closing thoughts on CLG before we move on?
No, I think that's it. I rambled about mid.
Mid. I know you love your mid. Let's talk about the team that I think has the biggest question mark and potential. Golden Guardians, they basically revamped 3/5 of their roster, keeping only contracts and Deathly from last year. They picked up Hanser from TSM in the top lane, Froggen from question mark taking a break in mid, and then Ole from Team Liquid to join Deathly in bot. So when I look at this team, I look at it as like a team of potential, where it's like, okay, well, Hanser's great, Froggen was great, Ole still, he wasn't bad on Team Liquid. He had very questionable moments, but like he wasn't bad. So Turtle, when you see this team, what do you think?
I see this. I just think this team is just like individually talented. They have great roles, great players in every single role. I don't know how it'll come together in like a team environment, and I think we just have to watch this team. I think this is a team to just watch for because they could surprise a lot of people.
Emily, first impressions of the roster.
So if CLG is like a question mark, this is the like
Shrug.
and the main reason, and I'm not like brushing them aside, by the way. It's just like I honestly have no idea how this team's gonna play. I think they do have a lot of talent on this team. I am really curious to see Froggen come back. I haven't watched him play in a while, so that I think is one of my hangups with kind of trying to rank like where I would put this team even, because I just haven't seen him play. And I've watched him have like really high highs, and then I also watched as like NA fans progressively got like more and more mad at him when the last time he was in NA, even though I actually didn't think he played that bad. I feel like that's still kind of an unpopular opinion, but so he's back, and I think the team will kind of depend on how well he plays. I'm curious to see the Deathly and Ole bot lane, because I think that's a lane that actually could work out really, really well. And it could be a very aggressive lane to play against, which could be fun to watch. But yeah, like it's mainly because I haven't seen Froggen play in so long that I'm just kind of like, wow, I have no idea what to do with this lineup. And again, it's not like, wow, they're going to suck ass. It's more like, I just don't know. I have no idea how they're going to come together. And I'm not even sure, like, so if they come together and start doing really well, I'm not even sure what that team would look like. Like, are they playing through the top side with Hanser because Hanser's suddenly performing really well again, and Contracts is playing like super aggressive junglers, like we know the Kha'Zix is back, right? So is he on that, just like murdering people? Or are they playing through this bot lane that they have? Or are they just having like Froggen sit and be an immovable object in mid? Like, there are so many ways that this team could play, and I think that in and of itself is really interesting.
Yeah, there's like a ton of variables of how this team can go that I can't really tap into just because it's so hard to say, you know.
If you could guess where the weak point of this team would be, what would you think?
To guess where the weak point would be?
Yeah.
I mean, overall, I think Ole is probably he's a really good player, but very inconsistent. So that could be like a pretty weak point as well. He could like, maybe if he's on point, he'll carry the team, but if he's not on point, like he could just like, you know, tilt off the face of the planet. And I think that's something you always gotta consider.
Yeah, that's definitely. I remember MSI, that was a little sad moment for him, especially in Worlds. When it seems like whenever the pressure starts to rise and team tension starts to, you know, get higher and higher, just some people can't end up handling it and just internally combusts on their own team. That's public knowledge, by the way, chat. I see you going, what? But Emily, anything to close on these guys before we move on?
This is a team who has a coach that I actually really like in an arrow. So it'll be interesting to see, like, he's someone who the reason why I respect him is because he is willing to think like outside the box. So basically, like when bot lane opened up last year, I know there were a lot of things that he wanted to try and was able to try before eventually leaving Echo Fox. So because this is a team that, you know, we already said has a lot of different ways that they could play, I'm curious to see what an arrow does with that.
Got it. Yeah, he seems to be pretty excited to work with these players and work with this organization. Every single time I've talked to him, he thinks that he can really mold these guys into being I guess like he was describing them as kind of like the dark horse of the league right now. But I mean, yeah, I think potential is like the biggest thing that comes to mind when I see this roster. And I think if anyone can really work it out, I think an arrow can. But let's talk about the next roster that had another major... God, all of these Koreans just coming back to NA and just shaking up everything and everyone going like, wait a second, what? Let's talk about 100 Thieves because, Turtle, are you scared that Bang is now in the bot lane and you're going to have to play against him?
I feel like skill gaps between AD carries are mostly due to like just decision making nowadays. It's whoever makes the smarter decision at the given time. I don't think it's like the thing is like even if he is better than me by like whatever it is, like as long as I just play like enough games against him or just like learn something that he's doing that no one else is doing, I'll be able to catch up pretty quickly. Because I think nowadays it's really hard to have like a huge gap between a lot of players. And I think 100 Thieves is probably going to be like similar to how they were last year, personally.
Mm-hmm. Emily, I know you were pumped to see Bang, or were you pumped or were you cautious about him? I forgot.
I mean, I'm happy to see Bang in NA. I think that's like a huge thing to see. Yeah, seeing Bang in NA is going to be pretty fun for sure. Just because he's like SKT's main AD carry for so long, and he's a really good player. I have a lot of respect for him. Like he's definitely like one of the best team fighters I've ever seen. So.
He pulled what, back-to-back world championships in 2015-16 or
I think it's something like that.
Yeah. So geez, okay, so we do have like this big talent in the bot lane, but yeah, like you said, it's all gaps closing. Emily, what were your thoughts on Bang coming in?
So when I look at this lineup, the thing that I'm most curious to see, and I've said this publicly elsewhere, is how Onda performs, because I actually thought he was their best performing player at Worlds. Even when, you know, they were struggling in their group and they caught a lot of flack for it. And then, hey, both world finalists came out of their group. So maybe that has lessened some of the criticism that they received. But I like Onda, and I think he's kind of a talent that I've seen improve over time. So I'm curious to see him continue to improve over time. With Bang, I think what you're looking from him is to be a huge... Like, when I look at this lane, like Bang and Afremu, I don't think they're going to be a powerhouse lane. What I do think is that they're going to be an incredible team fighting piece of this team. And when I look at this team, it's actually... Now that I'm really, like, sitting back and thinking about it, especially with Huhi in the mid, who, again, is someone who's been known to push up his side waves and, you know, roam into jungle for vision, roam into his side lanes to add pressure. I think this could be a phenomenal team fighting team if they come together, both in terms of skirmishing and then also in terms of 5v5 team fighting.
Mm-hmm. And then we also have probably sticking with 100 Thieves as their head coach, but then Ryu is moving into, I believe, like a player coach position. Is that what he is?
That is what they said, I think.
Yeah, player coach position. But I mean, I think that's also pretty great considering they have 2 Korean-speaking players on the team. So that is he for those? I guess my question is, he's assuming like this role of player position coach or something, and they just picked up Bang to work with someday. So is he basically? Do you think he's going to be focusing on those 2, or what do you think?
I mean, I would actually assume that he would be focusing more on the mid lane since that was his position, but I'm not sure. I know Bang's English is really good, just as an aside. Not that like there are two communication barriers, right? One is like actual, like, can we speak the same language? And then the other is just ones that any team has to deal with, which is in terms of like everyone's temperament and how well do you get along. And like anyone who's ever had roommates has experienced some form of this, even though obviously you're not in a competitive environment, or maybe you are and your rooming situation was weird. But I think, I'm not sure what Ryu is going to be doing. It just says that he's an assistant coach. Typically when players become like player assistant coaches or like position specific coaches, they follow the position that they were in. So I'm not sure, maybe he is talking to Huhi about his position. I'm not really sure like what his, I assume he's probably just filling in whatever role.
Got it. Trudy, did you want to add anything into that before we move on?
About Ryu being the assistant coach?
Yeah, or about 100 Thieves in general.
I just think 100 Thieves is going to be a really good team still. Like, Someday is a pretty monstrous in top lane. Probably the best, so. Yeah.
The best.
The best.
Moving the whiteboard in the background.
Yeah, they're like, get it out of there, wheel it out. But all right, let's move on to Team Solomid TSM. They shook up their roster. They brought in the best in the West bot lane, which was Sven and Mithy. Mithy's gone now. They brought back in Smoothie. Bringing in Broken Blade, who's another question mark. I think like the most recent thing that he did was him and his team Royal Bandits took first place in the TCL, which is the Turkish league, I believe.
It was actually a huge, so Supermassive ended up going to Worlds, as most people know. But it was actually a really big upset. This team was like stomping everyone. And it's also the team that Abadage came from to go to, or I think he might have been on one more team in between, but like he was also on this team at one point. And then, this team it was a shock that they did not end up going to Worlds, basically.
And Turtle, you said that TSM is a team that you think is going to be pretty strong this split?
Yeah, I just think they overall, like, they have a pretty good game plan. I think Bjergsen's Bjergsen's always really good. So I think this year he's trying more, like maybe even like Shakal even more now. And he has Smoothie by his side now, and I think Smoothie was always pretty smart around like warding up and pressing plays. So I think this iteration of TSM, I think they'll make like a lot more plays than the previous iterations we've seen before. Just over the fact that they have really good playmakers on the team now. And I think Broken Blade is like that type of player who likes to just fight, I think. So, yeah.
I think, so he's the question mark, but one thing that I'm actually kind of excited to see is Acadian playing for the main team. I know that he was kind of brought on to be more of their academy player, and that Greg is having some wrist issues, and that's why he's not going to be playing for the first week, or for as far as we know. But from what I've heard, Acadian's been practicing with the team since, I believe, like November, December of last year. So he's been pretty involved with scrims and with practice and everything. So I want to see what he's able to bring to TSM. I want to see if he brings like that kind of like aggressiveness back and how that fits in, I guess, with the team environment.
Well, also if you look at I mean, it's kind of similar to it's not exactly the same, but they're, again, like Kha'Zix is back. There are a few carry champions that suit both him and Contracts, who kind of debuted at the same time when like Kha'Zix, Rengar were both like insanely broken, I believe. So yeah, it could be a good meta for him as well.
Awesome. Well, then let's move on to, I think, what people are predicting are going to be the top two teams. Let's start with Team Liquid. Team Liquid basically kept their roster except for, I should say they kept like the core parts of their roster with Impact, Xmithy, and Doublelift. But they went ahead and they made changes for the two positions that I believe the scene thought were kind of like their weaker roles, which was their mid lane and their support. They brought in Jensen from Cloud9, fresh off of World semifinals, and bringing in Core JJ, which is super exciting. Emily, what were your first thoughts of this roster?
I think the double lift Core JJ lane is actually, they're really well suited to each other because for people that don't remember, Core JJ actually was not starting for Samsung for a while. Wraith was starting over him, and the reason was because Wraith was more of a roaming support. At that time, he matched support rooms better, and he worked better to kind of bring Ambition up as a jungler. However, when lane swaps were eradicated right before the playoff gauntlet, it was Core JJ who stepped in and was just an insane laning support. And as we know of Double Lift, after years of watching him play, he really likes to get laning leads. So I actually think this is, I know people always joke that like, oh, of course, like Double Lift loves his support now, but just you wait. Like, I actually think they're really well suited to each other. I think this is going to be an incredibly strong lane because they are two very lane-focused players. So they should get along really well, and they should be really strong.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just over the fact that Core JJ used to be an AD carry player, and I think just having that knowledge of playing AD carry makes you a better support, I'd say. Like, even in laning phase, because being a good AD carry is just like knowing all the details, and like every small thing matters, like to trades, to CS, to wave control. All that matters in bot lane, and I think Core JJ knows that to a pretty good level over other supports. Like, other supports could know the map game better than him, but I don't think that is the case anymore, considering he's won Worlds before. So he's definitely doing something right. And I think for TL, I think having Jensen is kind of crazy, just like having that pickup in the mid lane. Jensen's always been like a really good player, and he's never moved from C9 in a really long time. So this is like the first time we'll see him in like a whole different core, like playing away from Sneaky, and just seeing what he has as a player on a different team.
What do you think about this double of Core JJ bot lane? Like, how do you think it's going to rank up to everyone else?
I think they're really good. I just think they're really good. That's
it. So do you think, because everyone that I've talked to thinks that they're just going to kind of like roll through all the other bot lanes, with maybe the exception of Cloud9, who's going to be the last team that we talk about. So, I mean, what do you think of them? Do you think that they are just like this behemoth that everyone's going to be trying to take down as their goal, or do you think that they're just a little overhyped right now?
No, I don't think. I think it'd be a little bit overhyped. I could definitely see it. They just started playing together like probably like less than a month, so there is like some timing for you to get good as a bot lane. Like, I think with me and other supports, like me and JJ, like we needed like a lot of time to like find our stride. I think we finally started playing a lot better like mid-summer. We picked up the Varus Braum, and we were beating a lot of people with that. But prior to that, we weren't doing that well. So I do think they're going to need some time to adjust to each other, and they haven't found that yet.
So what would you think would be this team's kind of like downfall, if not maybe like some issues in the bot lane with synergy, like kind of building up to the synergy?
The issues with this team?
Or sorry, let me rephrase this question. What do you think this team could improve on? Because I think on paper, this is the strongest looking team. It looks like they have strong players in every single position. So it's like, if something was to take this team down, what do you think it would be?
Something were to take this team down. This is like a really hard team to take down. I think Impact has actually been playing like the best on that roster, at least from like what I've been seeing. Impact has been like a crazy monster.
Yeah.
I think it would have to be maybe in the jungle. If the jungle meta is like different, maybe Xfinity can adapt to a certain meta. Like, I think if it goes back to like maybe like a different jungle meta, he may not be able to adapt as quickly as the other players that had been playing. That's just what I could potentially see as an issue. I don't really know. Like, this is just a good team.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Emily, do you?
It's really hard to see anything taking this team down. It's also, so spoilers, I have an article coming out on them in the next like few days or day. I think it comes out tomorrow, but that's up to editors. But anyway, because I got to follow them around on Features Day, and I think the thing that struck me about this team kind of from a behind the scenes perspective is that they seem really chill. Like last year, TL had this kind of like really serious air about them, I guess. You know, they just, separate, like they just got the Alienware training facility, so they were in the process of, you know, you like sleep here and you live here and then you work here, and it's more professional. It's more like a job. And this is an entire team of veterans, and I expected them to have that same kind of like focus, I guess, but they're just all like really chill. They seem to get along really well. Talking to them, they seem really relaxed. Not to say that they're not taking it seriously, because they obviously are. I feel like people sometimes take that out of context. Being relaxed is not a bad thing. It just means that you have that like kind of trust in your teammates, and this is a very veteran lineup. So if they can all trust each other, and even when they make mistakes, kind of listen to each other, that will be an incredible benefit for this roster.
Got it. Yeah, like I said, I think that this team looks like the strongest on paper, and that I think Doublelift even said in the hype video or the teaser or something that, listen, we've already won back-to-back split championships, so anything other than a win is almost a failure to them. So I thought that was like pretty like, oh, well, so what do you do for the year? You just get back-to-back again, actually make progress at MSI, and then hope that you have a better Worlds performance? Or like, what's the future like for that team?
Well, now you have to ask him that on stage.
Yeah, I'm going to ask him that on stage. I'm like, listen, Peter, you can't be shit again this year. No, I'm just kidding. But let's talk about the team that actually did have some success at Worlds. Cloud9, our last team.
Hey, C9.
Yeah. So what did you think of when you were watching Cloud9 just make this absolute run through Worlds, Turtle?
It was just amazing to watch. I think it's very inspirational for like all of like NA players, just to see like how far an NA team can go, and I think it definitely motivated the whole region again. And I do think 2019 could be the year of NA if this kind of keeps up and we're all motivated to get better, because we do have the talent that comes from the other regions that are in our region currently. I think Bang can help the AD carries get like a lot better. Jensen, solid mid laner. And I just think we have like good enough players in every single role to like take it to another level. And I think C9 is a really great example of it. And another topic about C9 is they've been practicing like the longest out of every team. They only got like 2 weeks break. Like they didn't even take that long of a break. And
they went straight over to Korea.
And then they just started practicing again. So I think that will give them like an edge at the start of spring. And they will probably even be the best team at the start of spring just because of the extra practice they put in.
Yeah, I think Jack was like teasing on Twitter. He's like, oh, we're just stomping on scrims. No one can take us down. But I mean, I do really respect the amount of practice that they put in, and boot camping over to Korea immediately. And I believe they stay there until like the day before Christmas or like Christmas Eve or something.
Yeah.
So they were working really hard. I think they had a couple of their academy players over there too. I don't remember if it was like the whole team. But I mean, everything, like I think they're really taking their Worlds performance and kind of their experience there to heart, and they're just really working on the grind. The one player that I think I'm not sure what to feel about yet, and Emily, maybe you could help us with this, is Niski. How do we think he's going to fit in with this team?
I actually like Niski a lot. People might be familiar with him because he was in NA previously, but last year is kind of where he really started to shine during his, so he's been back and forth. Let me check how many times he's been back and forth from Europe to
He was
NA.
on Envy, and then he was on...
so yeah, it's just
Splice.
been twice. So it's, Fnatic
Envy,
Academy
Splice to C9.
to Envious to Splice to C9. I want to make sure there wasn't like one more swap like back in his history. But yeah, it was really last year on Splice where I feel like people had always kind of taken notice of him, but it was last year on Splice where he really started to perform really well individually, and people looked at him and they were like, oh wow, like he's really improved as a mid. And so coming back with C9, obviously I assume that C9 will be doing something kind of similar to what they did previously, where they really do like to include their academy lineup. They really do like to swap players around if possible. I don't know if they're going to be doing another thing where they basically have like 2 lines and they rotate out like jungle mid for jungle mid. But I do think that he could end up swapping with Golden Glue depending on what kind of style they want to go for. And the same with, obviously, you have Blabber, we've already seen him in Academy, and then Svenskeren in the jungle. So we'll see if they go for that kind of thing again, where if they feel like there's a jungle mid duo that works really well and another jungle mid duo that works really well, they'll swap back and forth. But I do think this is a team that is still really committed to swapping between players on their Academy lineup and players in LCS if they deem it necessary, or if they want to try out some sort of new strategy, if they think someone will work better. And I actually think that the focus on having those players around, even if you don't see them on stage, was a huge part of C9's success last year. So as long as they continue that, like you mentioned, some of their Academy players went to Korea. And that's kind of how committed, like, they went to the NA finals last year as well, I believe, to help support the main lineup and or be available for scrims and stuff. So that's the kind of mentality that I know Jack and Reaper wanted to instill in this roster, is that anyone can play, or like we all want to support each other as a unit, and they're just going to practice insanely hard. So
I just figured they were...
I mean, I know that I know a lot of people are down on the mid lane swap, but I do think Niski performed well last year. I think he'll come in, and he should. There's no reason why he shouldn't perform well in this situation. And yeah, so even though people were insanely mad, or like the social media reaction to Jensen leaving was,
I don't think people were necessarily mad that
I don't think it
Niski
was
was popping in.
like,
I think it was just they felt that they were sad because Jensen was leaving.
Yeah.
Because I think that was a big question mark. But then on the other hand, if you try to think from his perspective, like, we don't know what happened behind the scenes for Cloud9, behind the whole benching and stuff. Like, they said, oh, it was mentality. But we don't know. We only heard what they told us. So, I mean, he could have wanted to leave Cloud9, and maybe Team Liquid just gave him the right offer. So I don't think we can really be mad at Jensen for leaving.
No. Oh, no, I don't think you should.
Yeah.
I just think that people are generally considering this a downgrade, and I would say that Jensen is a better player than Niski. However, I don't necessarily think it will be a downgrade for the team, if that makes sense.
So then who would you... Okay, so this was kind of like my assumption. When I saw Jensen was out, and I don't think they had announced Niski yet, I thought that Grace or Golden Glue was just going to take the mid lane. And I would have been like, all right, this is sick. I'm ready to see him play. So, maybe Turtle for you. Would you have been just as nervous? I don't want to say nervous, but what do you think about the Niski to Golden Glue? Who would you rather play against, I guess?
They're both like pretty good players. I think Niski is definitely more similar to Jensen, and that's probably why C9 picked him up. But I do still think that Golden Glue has like some time to like learn, because it's the mid lane talent pool in North America is like so stacked. I think I think we still only have like 2 maybe like native NA mid laners that play in the LCS right now. And to have someone like move up is like a pretty big deal, and DeMonte was able to do that, which big kudos to him. I just think mid lane is a super competitive role. It's really hard to say, and you have to be like very good at communicating and a really good player.
Got it. All right. Well, any closing thoughts on Cloud9 before we move into our predictions from either of you guys?
No, I think we covered most of C9.
Unless anyone has like more dirt on Rebird in the form of karaoke videos, then I think we're good to move on to predictions. Those karaoke videos were awesome. So I think, Emily, we'll start with you first. So we give Turtle some time to think. Top 5 teams that you think are going to come out of Spring Split. And Turtle, you can either choose to insert FlyQuest into your top 5, or just assume that FlyQuest is number 1, and then just, like, not even count them. That's kind of like the way we're doing it.
Cool.
All right, Emily, go.
Yeah, you can remove FlyQuest.
Yeah, because you know where it's at.
So top 5 teams. I'm going to go TL. C9. Tough call between 100 Thieves and Team Solomid for 3-4. I'll go 100 Thieves Team Solomid. I'm not super sold on that actually. But we'll go with it. And then 5 is really tough because, like we said, a lot of these lineups like Fox, Clutch, CLG,
just question marks.
GG.
Yeah. All right, is it my turn?
I was gonna say I promise I'm not saying this because Turtle's here, but I'll sneak FlyQuest in at 5.
Nice. Cool. Cool. All right. I think for me, I'm gonna put TSM at 1, 100 Thieves second, C9 third, TL fourth, and what was, I had a fifth team. Oh, Clutch fifth. Yeah, that's where it was.
All right, hold up, because these are totally.
Well, remember he's removing FlyQuest.
He's removing FlyQuest.
Yeah.
FlyQuest is number 1. FlyQuest is number 1, clearly. But
TL fourth because they have to be fourth. You know?
TL fourth. Okay, so
for tradition.
Now, are you memeing me, or do you actually think Team Liquid is going to be?
I these are just my predictions. I really don't. Like, it's really hard to predict any of these teams.
Yeah,
I'd say,
yeah.
so I'm just gonna say these can be switched around. So.
Got it. Oh, so these are kind of like your top 5 in no particular order.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. All right.
I mean, you can take the order as it is. Like, I'm down for it too.
Yeah. All right.
We can reference this when it
bookmark
actually
this
happens.
video.
Bookmark
and
it,
then come back
save.
and find Turtle.
Yeah.
At the end of the split.
If this does happen, we're copy and pasting this.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Chat, if you guys have any questions, you could get your questions ready and just put them into the chat, and we'll go ahead and read them out. But so I'm a little surprised because maybe I'm just getting hyped for them because I was hyped for them last year. I think Golden Guardians has there's a possibility that they make it into top 5 this year if everything goes right on their team. In terms of like Clutch beating them, I don't know. I just have this weird faith in Golden Guardians that they can knock out some of these teams. Like if TSM also falls flat on their face again, like if something goes wrong with their top side of the map, then who knows? Maybe Hanser can take.
Well, I think the big thing to remember is that so looking at the standings last year, right? You have TL1 at 12-6. You have C9 who started their season abysmally and ended at 11-7. Then you have 4 teams at 10-8. So if last year is anything to go by, and this meta does seem to sometimes invite a lot of parity, especially as teams are figuring stuff out. Right now, the Korean standings outside of Griffin being top and SKT doing well are really flip-flopped compared to what people's expectations were. So, I mean, I think that's another thing that will be interesting to see evolve week by week is if we end up having a lot of parity like we did in the summer season last year.
Cool. All right, we have some questions from the chat. Okay, this one's about Tyler 1. This one's about contracts. I'm trying to read. This is fast. I don't know how much you guys would know about some of these questions. We have King Hershey asking, why did Hjarnan not find a team when an AD like HQ did? Yeah, I think we did talk about that in our LEC preview show. You can look at the YouTube in the link below, and we did talk about that. I think Dracos had some pretty good thoughts on him. Okay, some of these are just anime questions. All right. This is a good one from Digger-san. How much effect do you think Zix is going to have on TSM?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. The thing is with Zix is he's had a history of being pretty smart about the game and knowing how to direct the team to get the goals. So I do think Zix is a good addition to TSM. Mm-hmm. I don't really know how he's gonna. I haven't worked with him that much before. I've worked with him briefly before, but I just think he's smart. So I think TSM definitely can have a lot to learn from him, and he's definitely won with CLG before. They won an LCS with him as a coach. So
when did you work with Zix?
Disclosed information.
Oh, okay. Because I'm all like, wait, were you on CLG? I don't remember that. That's a question mark. But all right, let's see. Oh, okay, here's one. Thoughts on Dardoch? This is from, I can't read the name. iSushi. From iSushi. Thoughts on Dardoch for joining Optic Gaming? Should he be moved to the main roster or the academy?
I think it's gonna depend.
It depends on the performance. It's always if there's another player that's gunning for your position, it's always who performs better. And I think that's mostly just due to like how well you communicate and how well you work with your teammates. I think that's what makes a good player. Like I think for me, like the only reason I've been able to play League of Legends for so long is I'm just good at working with other people.
That's nice. The friendly
yeah.
ADC.
I'm just good with it. So.
Yeah, meanwhile, Doublelift is a jerk, so he'll be out of a job and like that. No. But Emily, you were about to say something?
Oh no, I was gonna say the same thing. Like it's going to depend on performance and how well. Like again, I'm probably a bit higher on Meteos than most people might be, I guess, going into this split, just because I still think he's just a really smart player. So I wouldn't be surprised if they swap out Meteos for Dardoch if something isn't working on the team, or if they just feel like sometimes swaps happen not even because of performance, but because you just want like some sort of fresh mentality to come in. So that always could happen. I think if Meteos comes in and performs as well as he did when he was on stage in LCS last year, then he probably will stay as the starting jungler.
Got it. All right, here's one from Jean Balloon and Turtle. Maybe you can tell us kind of like what FlyQuest's take is on this, but do you think we are going to see more academy swaps?
At least for yes. If a team wants to utilize their academy team, they will. I think our academy team is especially talented. We have Selfie and Maxi in our academy team, so they could be utilized for the main team, but they necessarily don't have to either. So I do think C9 is using it the right way. They definitely use their academy team to its fullest potential. And I think if teams are smarter, they will swap more often. Yeah. So
Cloud9 was kind of the, I don't know, will we call them like the pioneer of really utilizing their full roster with swapping in?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
In NA for sure.
In NA, yeah.
And I think that kind of just stemmed from Jack, because he worked with the Overwatch team and they had like 10 players on the team for his Overwatch team, and he was like seeing how well it worked, so he's like, why don't I just do that for my league team?
Yeah, I mean, it really worked. We also have CLG. They're being very vocal about trying to really utilize their 10-man roster. So this is more of like a player mentality question that I have for you. A lot of the players were talking about, listen, like we think that the gap between academy and starting players are closing, and that's really motivating both the academy players to get better, to fight for those spots, and the starters to really get better, not so much so that they could take the win, but so that they keep their spots. What do you kind of think about that mentality or that motivation?
I think it's a great mentality to have, just over the fact that you should be forcing like your good players to get better. That's pretty much like the whole idea behind it. So
yeah, that's good.
And I think it also motivates like the whole region too. Like if an academy's player is able to replace LCS players like pretty often, then like more solo queue players will try to get into academy.
Nice. All right, Emily, we're looking really into the future with Raffle Waffles questions. Who's going to be the spring split MVP?
Oh God. Jeez. I hate questions like this because there's like no analysis.
You have nothing that you can base it off of.
It is throwing a dart at a dartboard. Let's go through. Let me look at the lineups again.
Who do you think? Because I think everyone just goes like, Bang is gonna kick ass.
I mean, I think Bang is really good, but I also think that people are maybe mislabeling him a bit as a huge laning ADC. And who knows, maybe he'll come out and he'll just like stomp lane and he's like tweaked his play style a bit. But where you want to look for Bang is really in team fights. Let's see. Oof, man, this is tough. I'll go under the assumption that I get all my predictions right. So the top team is TL, right? I kind of want to go like Dark Horse Core JJ because I think he's actually an insane player. But someone else on that lineup, like, I actually have a lot of respect for Smithy. I know he's not the flashiest player, but I feel like he's been the core of so many really successful North American lineups. So I don't think he's ever going to get MVP, though, because he's not a flashy player. So if someone's going to get MVP on that team, it's probably actually going to be Jensen or Double Lift.
Yeah, probably.
And again, it won't be undeserved, but like I would kind of want like Core JJ to sneak in there because again, he is like he can pull off some insane mechanical plays, and he's such a strong player.
All right, Turtle, another one for you from Rift Ruler Roust. Do you think Misfortune can make a return to pro games this season?
If someone's brave enough to pocket pick it, yeah. That's the only way. I mean, she's a great pocket pick, I'd say. Like, if you're really good on her, you can definitely dominate lane and do things. But I don't really see her use other than that because I think her ult's like very unreliant. Like, nobody's gonna get hit by that in like a pro game.
And you have to stay still for it.
Yeah. It's just like, all right, just nobody.
I think it could be a pocket pick. Like, if someone wants to invest time into it, like, it can definitely work. I do think like League of Legends, like the state of the game is like if you put enough time and you get really good at a certain champion, you can make it work. Just how I think about it.
Cool.
So maybe you'll see new picks from me.
Ooh.
Just kidding, but baby.
No. You can give us the hint, but it has to be in the form of their champion dance. So we just have to, guess from there. But okay, so this is an interesting question. We'll probably do this one and maybe one more, and then we'll let you go. But Dejanalis, I can't even pronounce that name. Assuming Wiggly counts as a rookie, who do you think will be the LCS rookie of the split?
Who are the rookies?
So I'm actually not quite sure because when I think we were talking about it,
it's Viper, I think.
Like all the LCS, I think Viper's the only official rookie. So I think he just wins.
Wait, has Vulcan?
Oh, it's Vulcan's.
Played?
But he played a couple games last year, and where was he playing before?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Does that count already?
I'm trying to remember. It won't count in terms of Riot, but like in terms of true rookie.
Yeah. He played...
Because, like, the people who are going to be eligible are Wiggly.
Will Wiggly be
Vulcan.
eligible?
I think he will, because he only played, like, 2 games for CLG, right?
Yo,
he
didn't play more
many
rookies in League of Legends.
Yeah.
We need like 15 rookies a split.
Yeah, definitely.
Wait, a question for you guys. Do you guys think there's not enough rookies? Why do you think there's not enough rookies in LCS?
Why do we think there's not enough rookies in LCS? I feel like they're...
Because I feel like in LPL and in Korea, like, they have like a ton.
And in Europe.
Like, even Europe.
Through there.
They got a lot more rookies. But NA, we have like not that many every year, so.
Yeah, I think so. EU is a little bit different because they just went through their first thing of franchising. Like, this is their first year of franchising. So when they had a couple of new orgs coming in, I think they picked up like huge EU Masters teams. Like, what was the Spanish one, Emily, that all of, I think, Excel?
Mad Lions?
Yeah, Mad Lions. Like, basically a good chunk of their roster became a team.
It's SK Gaming.
SK.
And they actually,
so
Selfmade popped off against Fnatic.
Yeah. And see, it was great. So for me, I think we do have rookie talent, and all those people are kind of like floating around in academy right now. And this is maybe from, again, like a player or a coaching perspective that I don't kind of have that insight on, but I feel like people just aren't really ready to take a total risk in putting a complete rookie in.
I think people weren't ready until last year when C9 did it, right? Because again, like what franchising allows you to do is actually take a chance on rookies. So actually, FlyQuest did it too with JJ.
Yeah.
So I think that is a factor. I also think that there was a weird timing issue that NA is just now starting to get over, and we're starting to see newer players come up, and it's that when teams started heavily bringing players from other regions over, it was about the same time that Challenger became, like, NA Challenger has gone through a lot of really weird iterations.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that. And it wasn't necessarily, I feel like it's only in the past, like, probably like 2 years, I would say, like year and a half, that I've really seen teams focus on bringing players up through the Challenger system onto teams, and now it's about the lower step, right? I actually talked to a lot of people at Scouting Grounds about this, so I could probably ramble about it for a while, but talking to coaches and analysts and players at Scouting Grounds, their big thing is that now teams in NA have finally figured out what to do with their NA talent in bringing it up from academy and maybe letting them play a few games on stage and then bringing them up or bringing them up immediately. But now it's about finding and being able to scout the other tier, so like the tier slightly below that. So who's going to come up from NA as native talent onto your academy team, and where are you going to find those players?
Yeah. Turtle, do you have any thoughts on that question, or?
Sorry, what was the question?
You asked the question. Yeah, that's why I was asking. I'm like, what were your thoughts on the question? You asked about rookie talent.
I was just curious. I actually don't know why. I just think like maybe there's not enough like solo queue players.
I mean,
that's also
that's the overarching thing.
I think like any solo queue ladder, like the best people inevitably rise to the top, right? But in terms of player base, NA is always going to have because the percentage means that it's coming from a smaller player base. Mm-hmm. So it will be a slightly smaller raw pool of people that you're drawing from.
Yeah, League of Legends is pretty cool at the beginning for sure.
It's dead now.
I remember watching
I mean, it's like the discrepancy
season 2
in like
regionals
skill
or something.
Yeah.
But all right, I think that's basically everything we wanted to cover. Sorry for the people that we didn't get to hit in the questions, but I think me and Emily will stick around for a little bit after this. I want to make sure that Turtle is able to go enjoy his evening, because since he just finished all the scrims,
and they can turn their whiteboard around again.
They turn their whiteboard around. They can have their team room again. Turtle, is there anything that you'd like to shout out, promote, or anything?
Just thanks for having me. I think that's like a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for being here.
Let me think if there's anything I want to talk about. I don't think there's. I don't know. Just follow FlyQuest. We're gonna have a fun year. I think that's how it is. How it's gonna be.
Do you have any content that you want to preview? Like, have you been working behind? Yeah,
we've been working on stuff. I think we're gonna do like a ton of like funny things, like funny skits, and just like more vlogs from FlyQuest. You can expect that. Just like of the team in general. I think our team is a pretty fun team right now, just like in general, and I think we're still going to compete to be the best, so it's going to be great.
Yeah. You guys and Golden Guardians really popped off with content, I think, during the off-season, or at least Golden Guardians just had that one video. But I mean, I'm excited to see what else comes from you and the content team. Emily, you had your article that's coming out. You want to preview that at all?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it was basically just me following TL around during Riot Features Day, which if you don't know what that is, it's when they take photographs and assets for broadcast. So yeah, I mean, it was really fun. They seem, like I said, they just seem like the team itself has a very good atmosphere right now, which is cool to see.
Great. Awesome. Well, Emily, Turtle, thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm very excited for LCS to start this weekend. Everyone, LCS starts on January 26th. That is this Saturday. I actually don't know what time it starts. It usually starts like after EU, so the timing is always a little wah-wah. But everyone follow Emily, follow Turtle on social media, and then go check out all of FlyQuest's new content that they're going to be pumping out for the rest of the split. Thank you guys for watching.
GG.
We'll see you next time.
GG.
GG.